All right, so what we have on the agenda for today is, first of all, hopefully my voice will make it all the way through tonight. As I like to say, it's not like, teachers need to have their voice or anything like that, Anyway, what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be playing with a database that has already been created. And what we're going to be doing with that database is we are going to be extracting information from it using queries. So we're going to practice using queries to obtain specific information that we want to have. If you haven't yet picked it up, there is a, in addition to the book, which is over there, there's a little handout that is exactly what we're going to be doing today. So when you are, what you're going to turn in is going to look almost exactly like this piece of paper that that is on the table. And so this is found. So the first thing is that in order to get the database, you need to make sure that you log into your Canvas. And in Canvas, you need to log in and get to Chapter 2, Part 1, Querying a Database, which is this one. So again, under Assignments. And then in Databases, MS Access, Chapter 2, Part 1, Querying a Database. And the file that we're getting is Project 2, Pavant Publishing, and you want to save that. So if you want to save it in your downloads, that's fine. You want to save it on your documents folder, that's fine. Wherever you want to save it, it doesn't really matter. You just need to remember where it is. And when we open it, we need to click the button that says Enable Content. And after you enable the content, we have two tables that are in here. We have the book rep table and we have the customer data table. This is basically the same one that we did last week. Right, it's basically the same as the one that we did last week, but it has everything absolutely correctly done. So, right. All right. So the first thing that we are doing is if you turn on your book to page 75, it has a little picture of what exactly it is that we're doing. Yes. Do we have what in the computer? Yeah, it's on, it's this. You're not able to get into Canvas? Oh, right, right. Yes. Actually, let's see here. Let me see if I can. In the meantime, you could just use your version that you did. Do you have the? Did you save it on a thumb drive? The other thing I could do is I can manually put you in. So maybe that's what I should do.
When I open the file, it didn't show me. Not letting me log on to the oh, wait.
Oh, there it goes. Customer. Can I click customer or that book rep thing or?
No, you don't need to click on anything. You do not need to click on anything. Hold on just 1 second. Let me.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot. I'm gonna have to do something else later.
Our systems have detected unusual traffic from your computer network.
Just go ahead and click OK. Should clear. All right. So again, on page 75 is a screenshot, or not a screenshot rather, but rather a kind of a graphic of what it is that we're doing. Because what we're actually doing when you're creating a query is you're requesting information from the database. And so you are issuing a statement to the database saying, hey database, show me all of the data that match this requirements, whatever these requirements are. And that's what we're doing. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a query. So to create a query, we do this by clicking on to create. And then when we click on to create, we want to click on query design. And when we click on a query design, the first thing that you have to do is you have to say, which tables do you want to show? And so the first question that we are asking the database is, from the customer table, give me the customer number, the customer name, the amount paid, and the current due. So in order to do that, I need to open up the customer data table. So I say, open up the customer data table. And from the customer data table, I want the name of the number, name, amount paid, and current due. So I do number, name, amount paid, and current due. And if I run this exactly like that, so if I do this and then I click on to run, then what it does is it shows me everybody that is in the database by customer number, customer name, amount paid, and current due. Because again, if I look at the customer data table, it also has the street and the city and the state and the postal code and the returns and so on. And the only thing I want are the number, the name, the amount paid, and the current due. Those are the only things that I want. But the other thing that I want is I want to limit it to only those records where the customer number is CSU 10. So I only want Camilla State University. So to do that, I go back into my design view. And in my design view, I put in under the current due, I put in under the criteria what my criteria is. And so my criteria in this case is CSU 10. This is, like I said, pages 78 to 81 is where I'm at right now.
Customer amount due, customer name, customer number, amount paid, what?
It's on your sheet of paper, number 1. Yeah, hold on just a second. Oh, not current due, customer CSU 10. Customer number CSU 10. Okay, so again, let me start all over again. Okay, if you're typing or whatever, stop and look up at my screen. The number one thing I want to do is make sure that I have my database open. I do not have to have my tables open. I just have to have my database open. So I need to be like this. And then I click on create. And then I click on query design. This is on page 78. Then I choose the customer data table. And in the customer data table, I find the fields that I'm requesting. So the fields I'm requesting are the customer number. So I double click customer number. I double click name. I double click amount paid and current due. The other way I could have done it is I could have clicked onto the drop-down menu and found it. It's another way to do it.
But when we click current design and send the customer, it will just appear on the screen, customer name, customer number, customer name, street, city, state, but not unpaid. There's nothing else.
Because you didn't scroll down far enough. Look on my screen. If I scroll down, I see them all. And then I want to change in the criteria just CSU 10. And then I click on to run my query. Okay, so then click on view. Go to design. And then down here, we say customer criteria, but it's CSU 10.
CSU 10?
Yes. Okay, click on enable content. And so,
And hit enter?
so we want to create a new query. So create and then query design. And we want the customer data table and twice. And the stuff that we want are number, name, amount paid, and current due. And then under number, we want it to be CSU 10. So type in CSU 10 and then click on it.
Is it space, CSU space 10?
No, it's CSU no space 10.
Then you hit enter?
Okay, what does it say up here? CSU 10.
Okay. Then you hit enter?
Yeah.
CSU 10. Run.
Run, all right. Thank you. She got,
No, we were doing
I think she's having trouble too.
exit that one too.
Okay, so go on to view. And go down to customer number and where it says criteria. No, stop that one. Below it. Do current criteria. Yep, and type in CSU 10. Yep, CSU 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it did to me. And I went on to that one all the work. But then it should have.
Yeah, CSU 10. C,
Say no.
C, S, no space, one thing.
So you want to go to Canvas. So, right here where it says Canvas.
So you don't have more.
Made it look so easy.
On the first lines, Did run. The top did run.
Let me, what is your, what's your username? Your my web username. Get that to me and I will manually add you.
Can you do it?
Yes. So again,
Hold on, I'm not showing her how to log on.
okay, so again, in order to create this, the query would be that I want the customer number, the customer name, the amount paid, and the current due. And then under customer number, I want to type in CSU10 in the criteria. And then I click on a run. And when I click on a run, it will then execute that query. So again, to create the query, create, query design. When you click on a create query design, it says, what table do you want to show? You show the table you want, in this case, customer data table. We add the customer data table. In the customer data table, we want the customer number. We want the customer name. We want the amount paid. And we want the current due. And then in customer number, under criteria, we want it to be CSU10. And then once we've entered all of that in, we click on a run, and it will execute that query. So now that I have this query, I want to save my query. So to save my query, I'm just going to click on to save, this little save icon here. And I'm going to save this query as chapter 2 query 01. So CH2Q01. I'm going to click OK. So now it says chapter 2 query 1 query. And in order to get credit for this, I'm going to save this as a screenshot on a Microsoft Word document. So to create a Microsoft Word document, I need to open up Microsoft Word. So if you're not at where I'm at, you need to stop and watch what I'm doing because I'm about to show you how to turn in your assignment. So I open up Microsoft Word, and in Microsoft Word, I create a blank document. And in my blank document, I want to insert a screenshot, screen clipping, and then capture chapter 2, query number 1. And that would be the first query. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, as long as it shows the query, that's the only thing that's necessary.
What?
Can you go to the save? Sorry. When you go to the save, there's a box come, save us.
Yeah, and we saved it as CH2Q01. Yep.
You don't have to look, you know, the little icon right there. Save it.
It's probably up here. It's in the quick access toolbar, wherever your quick access toolbar is located.
Going to be saved there?
CH2Q01.
No, it's going to save to the document or to the.
I want you to create a screenshot of your assignment. So again, to create the screenshot, if you're in Word, it's insert, screenshot, screen clipping, and then draw a box around the part that you are capturing, and that will put it into your Microsoft Word document.
So insert, can you show me that one more time up there, please? Insert.
Insert,
Screenshot.
in illustration, screenshot, and then screen clipping. All right, so that was query number 1. The next query that I want to do is I want to create another query. And this is on pages 82 and 83. And so from this, we want to get from the customer table, we want the number, the name, the amount paid, and the current due. But only those whose people start with S. So to do that, I'm going to do a create query design. And in my query design, I want, again, the customer table. And in the customer table, I want the customer number, the name, the amount paid, and the current due. And then I only want those people whose customer name starts with S. So to do that, I type in S and then a star. Star means any character after S. Question mark would mean one character after S. So if I had, something like S star M, it could be Sam, it could be Sim, it could be, some. So if I had S question mark M, it could be just one character. If I had S star M, it could be S with any number of letters after S followed by an M. Anyway, they talk more about wildcards on page 83 to tell you more about what that might be. So anyway, we're creating this query to get the customer names whose name starts with S. I run it and I get the two customers that start with S. I want to save this, so I save it. And I save the query as CH2QO2. And now I want to get credit for this, so I go back to my Microsoft Word document, insert, screenshot, screen clipping of chapter 2, part 2. So that in my Word document, I now have the query number 1 and the query number 2. The next one is on the next one. They're actually having us skip pretty much pages 85 to 88. But I want to show you what it is. So although you don't have to do this for the assignment, I want to demonstrate what it's doing. So for this, this is not a one where you're creating this. So if you just want to watch me, you can watch me. If you want to follow along with me, you can follow along. What I'm doing is pages 85 to 87. Is what I'm about to do. So to do this, I'm going to create a new query. And in this new query, I'm also going to do the customer data table. And in the customer data table, I am going to get the number and the name and the amount paid, and the current due, and the city. Now, if I run this just like this, it's going to show me everything. If I only want to get those cities where the city name is Gaston, so it'll get this guy and this guy, then what I would do is I go back to my design, and in my design where it says city, I would say in the criteria, I would say Gaston. And when I run this, it only shows me the two cities or the two records that have Gaston. Now what's cool is that this works by typing in Gaston. But what you can do is you can create what is called a parameter query. And what a parameter query does is it allows you to have your user who is extracting the data to type in their own message. So I could go in here and instead of saying the criteria is Gaston, I could put in square brackets, I could say, enter the city name, close square bracket. And when I run this, what it will do is it will pop up with the screen that says, enter the city name. And if I then type in something like Adelphia and press OK, it shows me Adelphia's. And if I run it again, by going on view, design view, and run, and this time I type in, what's another city? Well, Gaston was a city. Type in Gaston. It'll show me Gaston. If I run it again, and I say, show me cities that start with G, so G star, and I press OK, it shows me nothing because there are none that start with lowercase g. The point is that with a parameter query, I can let the person who is running the query execute the specific number or the specific data that they want to pull out from the database. So if you've ever run a query in a real database and there was a screen that said, what do you want to look for? And you typed in something, that's because they did something like this. So if I just had all of them, it shows all of them. So another city is what? The city of Quaker. So if I say in the criteria, enter city name, and I run it, and I say Quaker, then it shows me the Quaker cities. Or the Quaker colleges, I mean. So all of this is on page 87 and the top of 88 and really 89 and no, just 88 up to page 88.
How do you do that screenshot clipping after you do that to take a snapshot of the thing you want to know?
Insert, screenshot, screen clipping, and then you draw a box on the thing you want to insert. You click and drag the box. All right. The parameter query is not something that you have to do, but if you want to do it, you can. What we do have to do is we have to do query number 3, which is on page 89. So on page 89, we want to get from the customer table the number, name, amount paid, and current due, but only those who have paid their bills completely. So when you pay your bill completely, it means that you have a current due of $0. So to do that, I want to create a query. So to create a query, again, I click on a create, and then query design. And then I want from the customer data table. And the fields that we want are the customer number, the customer name, the amount paid, the current due, and that's it. And in current due, again, if I run it like this, it's going to show us everybody. But I don't want it to show everybody. I only want to show those where they have a current due of $0. So to do that, I go in on my query design, and in query due or current due, in the criteria, I type in 0. And then I click on to run. And when I run it, I get just the Hammonds County ISD. And if I save this, I'm saving this as chapter 2, query number 3. And to get credit for this, I'm going to do in my Microsoft Word, I'm going to insert my screenshot, my screen clipping on query number 3. Questions? What questions do people have at this point? Anybody not at this point? Okay, if you're not at this point, raise your hand. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back and do this all over again at the very beginning. So if you are working on something else, I want you to stop and I want you to do it exactly. And when I say exactly, I mean exactly what I am doing. Do not skip ahead, do not look in the book, do not try to do something other than exactly what I am saying, okay? All right, so in Access, make sure that you are in the For Project 2 Bavant Publishing database. If you're not in that database, you're not in the right database. Anybody not in this database? Except for you, because I know you're not. Anybody else? Okay, if you're not at this database, keep your hands up and we will come around and help you get to them.
When you start this way,
Yeah.
okay. Y'all okay? Back here? Let's say database. Checking. We'll work on that end. There's some over here too. Okay. What database is it?
It should be in the For Project 2. Okay, this is not the
You have
For
it.
Project 2.
You're the same one.
But this should be
You're
okay.
project 2.
So,
Yeah, you're there. Project 4, project 2. Database. You're okay. That's why he's going to start over. He's going to start over. Okay. So let's close it up. Close it. Close this. Say no. Or say no. Cancel. He's going to start. Go back into Access. Okay, you open this too many times. You don't want to do that, okay? You open this too many times. Just want to open it one time. That's where you're getting messed up.
Name,
Go down.
number, amount, insurance.
See how many times you have it
And
open?
then.
Okay? Okay? Don't keep hitting that button to open, open, open.
Yeah.
Okay? You're gonna start over,
From there, so don't.
right, Mark? You're gonna start over
Yep, I'm starting all over
from number one?
from number one.
Okay, you're fine. Just follow it.
All right. Number one.
You're gonna start over. Okay?
So number one, the screen should look like this. If your screen does not look like this, make your screen look like this. Close everything. All right, so to create a query, what we want to do is we want to click on the create button.
He's gonna do it again, so follow him. We want you everybody to do it again.
So on the create button, click on a create
Close everything.
and then click on to query design.
Okay, you're fine. I'm just going by what he said.
In query design, on number one, so if you don't have the sheet of paper that has the listing of the things that we want, get the sheet of paper that has the listing that we want. And on number one, it says from the customer table. So because it says from the customer table, we have two tables in this database. We have the book table, and the book rep table, and the customer table. So we want the customer table. So double click the customer table, and then you can close the show table. In the customer data table, it says that we want the customer number, the name, the amount paid, and the current due. So to do that, we want to double click the customer number, customer name, the amount paid, and the current due. The final thing that we want is that we only want CSU 10. So to get CSU 10 in customer number, in criteria, we type in CSU 10. And then we click the run button. And we click run, it will show you only those records that match that criteria. That's it. That's query number one. To save it, you can click on the save button, or you can do Control S to save. And then we're saving it as chapter 2 query 1, chapter 2 Q01. So that was number one. For number two, we want to do basically the same thing. Create, query design, customer data table.
Wait, did we, on that one, did we do a snapshot of that?
On the snapshot you can do later. It's more important to understand how to get the queries.
Will we save it?
You can close or you can keep it open. Right, but it can be either closed or open. You could have it open or not.
Should go back to
Create,
design.
query design, and then number two, it is again the number, name, amount paid, and current due. But this time, instead of finding people whose name is CSU 10, we want those people whose customer name starts with the letter S. So in criteria, we type in S and then Shift and 8 to get the star button, to get the star.
Sorry, this again.
No, in customer name, in criteria, S star.
So for the second one, again, we should.
Yeah, the customer number, customer name, amount paid, current due for the second one.
Customer number, customer name, then amount paid.
Exactly like it says on the paper. And then we want to click on run. And when we click on run, it will bring up only those people whose name starts with S. So that's the second query. The third query was the customer number, customer name, amount paid, current due. But this time we want it to be the current due is set to the criteria of 0. And when the current due is set to 0, when we run it, it will run and only show you those people who owe nothing. In this case, Hammonds. So that is, those are queries number 1, 2, and 3. Query number 4 is going to use something completely different. For query 4, we're going to create a new query. And this query is not going to be from the customer table. It's going to be from the book table. In the book rep table, what we want is we want the book rep number, the last name, the first name, the start date, and we only want those people who started after January 1st, 2013. So if I run this with everybody, it shows all of the 4 book rep people, but I only want those that started after January 1st, 2013. So that means that I only want Robert Chin, Tracy Rogers, and Michael Statnick. I do not want Melina Perez because she started in 2012. So to do that, in my design, where I have start date, in my criteria, I'm going to say greater than, so the greater than symbol, and then 1/1/2013. And when I run this, it will bring you Chin, Rogers, and Statnick. And if I save this as chapter 2, query number 4, and if I wanted to put it in my Word document, I could insert my screenshot on that. But again, if you're having a problem with the screenshot, don't worry about doing that until after you're done generating all of the queries. So that was on page 90. On page 90, it's showing you how it's designed. On page 91, query number 5 is going to be from the customer table. We want the number, name, amount paid, current due, returns, and book rep number for those who have returns greater than 0 and book rep number is 42. So we want both of those things to be true. So to do that, I'm going to do create, query design. from the customer table. And the fields that we want are the number, the name, the amount paid, the current due, the returns, and the book rep number. Now, if I run this just like that, it's going to show us everybody. To go back to my design, view, design. And in my design, I want to say only those that are book rep number 42. So in criteria under book rep, I say 42. If I do that and I click run, it's going to show me everybody, but it's also going to show me those that have $0. Well, I don't want to include the ones that have $0. I want it to be only those that are bigger than $0. So I say in returns greater than 0. And if I run that, I then get just the 3 records that are bigger than 0 and have a book rep number of 42. Questions?
So that one, in the book, it says that it has greater than 0 or 42. So we do greater than 0 and 42.
No, for this one, we're using and. Page 91 is and. Page 92 is or. So this one is query number, chapter 2, query number 5. The next query that I'm doing is query number 6. And for that, I'm also going to get the customer number, the name, the amount paid, the current due, the returns, and the book rep number. But this time, what I want is I want to return all of those that have a return of greater than $0 or whose book rep number is 42. So if I do that in the criteria, I say greater than 0. And in book rep number, under the or statement, I say or 42. One of the things to understand about the difference between and or is that it's the opposite really in mathematics, and is opposite of what we normally mean in regular English. In ordinary English, if I say I want to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I mean I want to have some peanut butter as well as some jelly on 2 pieces of bread. In math and in computing, if I were to say that, I would get nothing. Because when we use and in computing, we're saying all of those things that have this characteristic as well as that characteristic. So and restricts the stuff that's there, or expands it. Or the way I like to think of it is, and if you remember nothing else, this is the thing to remember, or means more. Or always expands the stuff that you get. Or means more. So if I run this, I'm going to get lots more than I got when I got and. When I did and, I only got the 3 people. When I do or, I'm saying I want everybody who has greater than 0, as well as everybody whose book rep number is 42. Because or means more. Because what you're really saying is all of those people that have the characteristic of this, as well as the characteristic of that. That is what or means. And when you're doing and, you're meaning all of those people that have the characteristic of this, as well as those that have the characteristic of that. So and always restricts, or always expands, or like I like to think of it, or means more. So on this would be chapter 2, query number 6 rather. And if I want to put it in, oh, I didn't do 5, so let me do 5. Go into 5 and do my screenshot. Insert screenshot, screen clipping on number 5. And then screen clipping number 6 would be insert screenshot, screen clipping of number 6. Someone's page number 1 out of 4. Quarter of the way through. On number 7, query number 7 is that I want to get from the customer table, I only want to display the cities, and I want to sort them by alphabetical order, and I want to remove the dupes. So to do that, this is on pages 93 through 96. So to do this, again, I'm going to create a query. And in this query, I'm taking it from the customer table. And in the customer table, the only field that I want is the city field. So I choose city. If I were to run this at this point, I get all of the records with all of the cities. But what I want is I want to sort this. So to sort this, I go in on sort, and in sort, I say sort ascending. If I run it sorting ascending, we have Adelphia, 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 Chambers, Chesney, Chesney, Gaston, Gaston, Gossett, Greer, Greer, Pleasantburg, Pleasantburg, Quaker, Quaker. The next thing I want to do is that I want to remove the duplicates. So to remove the duplicates, I go back to my design view. And in my design view, in the property sheet, when I'm on my property sheet, there it goes. I want to say that I want where it says unique values, and it currently says unique values of no. I want to say unique values of yes. Unique values of yes means remove duplicate values. So if I say unique values of yes, and then I run it, I get just Adelphia, Chambers, Chesney, Gaston, Gossett, Greer, Pleasantburg, and Quaker.
It shows up different. It's like a whole tab. It doesn't show like the options to put yes or no.
So when you're in on it, you need to. So if you're in here, if you're in the field, it will be about the field itself. If you click on the in this area, it will open up the database as a whole. So if you click on here, the database as a whole, this will change the query properties as a whole. Whereas on here, it would change the query properties for just the field city. And I don't want it to be the field city. I want it to be the query as a whole. So when I do the query as a whole, I want to change that to unique values of yes. And then when I run it, I get my unique cities. And so for this is chapter 2, query number 7. Insert screenshot, screen clipping, and capture my screenshot. All right, next up, number 8. From the customer table, find the number, name, book rep number, amount paid, sorted by book rep ascending, and then by amount paid ascending. So to do that, again, I'm going to create query design. And the query, the table that I want is the customer data table. And the fields that I want are the number, name, rep number, and amount paid. And then I want to say sort by book rep number ascending. So to do that, in book rep number, where it says sort, I click onto the drop-down menu and I say ascending. And then I want to say amount paid, also ascending. And if I run that, I get the book rep, sort by book rep number and then sort by amount paid, going from small to big. So I'm going to save that as chapter 2, query number 8. And I'm going to capture that in my Word document. The next thing I want to do is I want to create another query. So query design, again, the customer table. Again, I want the number, name, book rep number, and amount paid. And again, I want to sort it by book rep and paid. But this time, I want to eliminate all but the top 5 records. So to do that, up here where it says return all records, if I click on that drop-down menu, I could say only show me the top 5 records. Or I could say only show me the top 20 records, or only show me the top whatever records. The drop-down menu has 5, 25, 100, 5%, 25%, and all. If you want it to be something more specific, you have to type it in. So if I want the top 5, I do top 5, and then I do run, and that's what we're supposed to do. But if I wanted to get like the top 8%, then I'd say 8%. And then when I run it, I get the top 8% instead of the top 5. But I want the top 5 because that's what the book wants. And I'm saving this as chapter 2, query number 9. And then, because I want to get credit for it, insert, screenshot, screen clipping, and capture the screen clipping. Questions so far? Yes.
Just a quick question. If you create something, right, and we don't want it, we want to put it out,
Yeah, so if you want to delete a query, the first thing you have to do is you have to close the query. So to close the query, you just click on a close. And once you've closed the query, then you can go to the query you want to delete, right click and choose delete. Or you could do rename if you want to rename it, whatever it is you want to do. All right, one more thing, and then we'll take a break. And that is that I want to now join the book rep table and the customer table together into one query. And to do that, I'm going to create a new query. But this time, I need to show both the book table and the customer table. And you'll notice that by default, it found that there is a record a field in the book rep table where the name is the same in the customer table. And so it assumes that the thing that is linking table number 1 to table number 2 is the field book rep number. And they're right. It is the way that it's doing. In the book rep table, the primary key is the book rep number. In the customer data table, the primary key is the customer number. Book rep number is the foreign key for the customer data table in relation to the book rep table. So sometimes you will see in database design theory, you'll see the phrase foreign or foreign key versus primary or primary key. The primary is the primary key for that particular table. And if there are two tables that are connected, then the primary key in table number 2 is the foreign key in table number 1, or vice versa, depending on how you think of it. So in this case, the primary key in the book rep table is book rep number, and in the customer data table, book rep number would be the foreign key, because the primary key for the customer table is the customer number. And what they're saying with this is that we're saying that the book rep number in the book rep table should be the same as the book rep number in the customer table, which means that any changes that are made in the table will also change in this table. And that's because in the join properties, if I double click the join line, it brings up the join properties. And we're saying only include rows where the join fields from both tables are the same. So if I do that and I click OK, and then I include the fields that I want. So the fields that we want are from the book rep table, we want the book rep number, the book rep last name, the book rep first name, and from the customer table, we want the customer number and the customer name. And then we want to sort that by book rep number ascending. So we do sort ascending, and by customer number ascending. And if I run this, I get the book rep number ascending, last name, first name ascending, with the customer, or rather with the customer name ascending. So this guy is going to be called the rep customer query. Now, it's very important that you have, if nothing else, rep customer query working when we're all done with today. Why? Because part 2 and part 3 are dependent upon rep customer query. So those are the things that we want to make sure are working. So again, I'm going to put in my screenshot for this. Insert, screenshot, screen clipping, and captions. And with that, we are halfway done with part 1. So I think it's time to go ahead and take a little break. When we come back at about 8 o'clock, we'll finish up this part.